Good morning, all. Second show of the year, and I got the opening graphics all correct this time. How are you, Jeff?
I'm
Plenty
good,
to
mate.
talk about this week.
Morena, I'm good, mate. How are you, bud? All good. You got your lawns mown and everything done. Bit of sunshine finally, eh?
Yeah, well, Wellington seems to have been in the eye of the storm. Unfortunately for our whānau up on the coast, been hit by all these horrible weather events. But it's been lovely weather here in Wellington. Would be a great weekend to host the Sevens. Actually, beautiful sunshine, no rain. Can't beat Wellington on a good day. Even the orcas come into the harbour and have a splash around, and now I see they've been followed by sharks. So I won't be going in for a swim in the harbour very shortly. But otherwise, no, it's going good. And I see you're involved with I'll just jump straight into it. I see that you're involved with the Silverdale Club Sevens, and you're off, or have you been to Mount Maunganui yet?
No, we head down on Friday, and the Mount Sevens is on Saturday. It's a Club Sevens tournament, so yeah, it'd be a bit of fun. Good to get back to club level again, and it's we're just sort of struggling a bit for players at this time of the year. I think most clubs are, and some players coming back late from Christmas break, and some still on holiday, and there's concerts and there's weddings, there's all sorts going on. So it's good, mate. It's good fun, and then from there we'll head across to Hamilton and catch the Sunday session at the International Sevens. And
I was going
and
to
I'll
say,
see weather forecast probably about Thursday because it's so unreliable, isn't it? So this stage, I think the mount's going to be about 28 degrees. So we'll be taking on plenty of water.
oh, totally. So, whose idea was it to play the Sevens on the weekend of the World Series?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I guess the Club Sevens organisers have the same date every year, and then I guess World Rugby, in their wisdom, just goes and throws it on that date. So there's no rhyme or reason, mate. I have no idea. It's just a lot of things aren't making sense or adding up, are they? We've talked about this at length. Obviously there's no national sevens tournament, so obviously, we'd go and you play your national sevens, and then from there they'd pick a New Zealand Sevens squad. The New Zealand Sevens squad would go into camp, and then from there they'd pick their squad for the Wellington Sevens. It was a perfect sort of a lead-in, but of course, that's all gone to mush now for whatever reason.
Oh, totally. And the funny thing about it all is, though, I mean, when I see tournaments being scheduled the same weekend as a big game or something, it just, it's like getting that invitation out to dinner one night when the test match is on.
Yeah, who does that? I'm the same. I'm like, dude, don't you realise the All Blacks are playing that night? What's going on? You get a birthday invite or something. It's like, come on, mate. You
Yeah,
know that all are going to end up in a room somewhere watching the bloody test match. So,
exactly.
uh,
We're on your phones.
yeah, but there's that scheduling. Remember last year when the Black Ferns played a semi-final, was it, or a quarter-final, and the All Blacks played Japan at the same time? And I was like, dude,
Fine.
how do you do that? So, I don't know. I shake my head
One job.
sometimes. Yeah, one job.
One job they have. But otherwise, before we jump into all the sevens, we have to jump for the news of the week. Here was us last week going, oh yeah, Eddie's off to America. It's quite obvious he's off. And then totally from left field yesterday morning, our good friend Dave Rennie is given the show in the door. And apparently he's not even in the country. And they wheel out Eddie Jones as the Messiah returns to Wallaby Rugby. What?
Mate, that's exactly what I thought. I read that. I thought it was a joke. I said, no, I had to go and sort of search that up myself. And once I'd read about 2 or 3 articles, I realised that it was for real. And I just couldn't believe it. I messaged a couple of my Aussie mates. They're blown away too because while their record wasn't good, it seemed as though Rennie had the support of the public and the players. And they felt as though they were on the right track, and it's like that's the tough thing I think with any coach or with any gig, even with a businessman taking over a new company, is you try and build for that long term. So you're blooding new players, you're trying new combinations, you're trying different game plans and structures because it's unrealistic to win every single game. So there's a bit of give and take there. I think Dave Rennie had sort of, and that had, God, how many injuries did they have on that last tour as well? Boy, they did pretty well considering. And so it seems like Dave Rennie's done all this work, all this hard work. He's put everything in place, and Eddie Jones is going to pop on in and try and get some glory for the World Cup. So I can't make sense of that, mate. I really feel for Rennie, and I think he's very hard done by.
Yeah, well, as Paul Paulson has just said here, unfortunately, it's not NZR's game because he had signed a contract to go to Kubota Spears in Japan at the end of 2023. So, but it will make it interesting because if Scott Robinson, Dave Rennie, and co are all going to be now available after the next World Cup, do we start saying a Scott Robinson, Dave Rennie team in charge of the ABs at the end of 2023?
No, I don't think so. I think those two are head coaches, and I don't know whether they'd work together. Well, someone like a Joe Schmidt, I think, has shown that he can work with other coaches, and he's quite happy to sit in the background. He doesn't really need to be the head coach. So I think Joe Schmidt will certainly be part of the team going forward. Hard to say what's going to happen, mate. I'd hate to be in Mark Robinson's shoes as the head of NZRU, but just going back to that Eddie Jones thing, you and I talked about at length again, Eddie Jones, and how he's got this ability to come in and really shake things up and get some good results early on. But it seems like he loses the changes shed quite quickly. I think he's a very direct and a very tough operator. So I think the players tend to sort of, things wash off them after a little while. So on the positive side for Aussie, possibly, coming in there, shaking things up and hopefully getting a hold of the changing room, which means that the respect of the players, that he can start to get some results. But it'll be on the back of what Dave Rennie's already done. And the key thing there is that Dave Rennie, to me, is one of those coaches that's proven. So he won an NPC with Wellington, didn't he? He turned up to the Chiefs straight after 8 years of nothing with Foster and won 2 championships in a row. So he's proven in different scenarios. To me, that's a sign of a really, really good coach. It's a bit like a Phil Jackson in basketball, or I'm trying to think of the dude in soccer or whatever. But I mean, even Wayne Bennett in league, that they go to different teams and they get results. So Dave Rennie's one of those guys. But having said that, I mean, we can't diss Eddie Jones because, he had some good results with Japan and he had some initial early results with England and obviously did really well with Australia on his first run as well. So, who are we to knock that decision by Aussie? Maybe there's a bit more, to it than what we think. But on the whole, man, on the outside looking in, it just seems like what a dumb decision.
Yeah, and also don't forget he also was a consultant with South Africa a couple of years ago as well. But he has lost 2 World Cup finals. But yeah, so he has lost 2 World Cup finals too, by the way. 99 with Australia and with England. 2003 with Australia and England. But and to Paul Paulson, that's all cool, mate. Thank you for bringing up that about the Aussie boss, and it's great to know that we can talk about Australia rugby, but we can still talk about the Taniwha and the Kauri from Northland. So, we're open for any question here on anything. We will try and answer what you need to know. So, otherwise, what else we got? So, I suppose, as you were saying, with all the sevens and everything like that, and I'll just say, because Paul's been very commenting, spot on, Jeff, dumb question. But no question is dumb. If you've got any questions,
dumb decision, he said.
Yeah. But so we've got everyone's starting to come back into play now. All the offices are opening up around the country. I will have a talking about sevens and the club sevens and the Mount Maunganui sevens. Might have another tournament for you to go and play in. I'm working on a flyer today for Poverty Bay for the Turangi Sevens. So keep an eye out for that on Thursday and Friday. An entry form is available. So if Silverdale want to travel down to Gisborne and have some crayfish, how's that sound for an away trip?
Well, that sounds pretty good, mate. Absolutely. Can't turn down good crayfish.
No. And on top of that, I'm sure, take a few sponsors with you to pay for the trip, even better.
Yep. Yeah, Rugby Heartland.
I'm still trying to get over my sore back. So anyway, let's have a quick look at before we jump into everything. And so, as I said, we've got the World Sevens on this weekend, and I won't. And this is the women's pools. So this is our main story for the day. Our last World Series tournament here for a while. So Great Britain. Now, before you go, Great Britain, where's England and Australia and all them guys? They are Great Britain because this is a World Cup, an Olympic qualifying year. So England, Scotland, Wales, and all that, they play this year as Great Britain because the top 4 teams in the World Series qualify automatically for the Olympics. And of course, only Great Britain play in the Olympics. So in the off Olympic years, they're back to England and Wales and Scotland and whoever else, whatever country they want to invade. So New Zealand have Great Britain, Fiji, and Papua New Guinea in Pool A. We've got Australia, France, Canada, Japan in Pool B, and USA, Ireland, Brazil, and Spain in Pool A. Now, how do you think the girls are going to go against Fiji in particular?
Yeah, well, a lot of it, Fiji have come on in leaps and bounds, haven't they, since they've started playing or taking the game seriously. Their fitness levels are through the roof. And so, again, they're very unpredictable. But look, before we go any further, I'm just predicting a New Zealand double this weekend. There's no other way I can see it. And not even going to entertain the thought of either New Zealand side not winning the championship. So certainly I think it'll be an Australia-New Zealand final, I think. But the beauty of sevens, you just don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, it all kicks off in the game at 20-11, 10:38, Ireland, Brazil. That could be a close shave, that game.
Yeah, the Ireland women, I don't think they're as polished as what the men are. I think the men are right up there with one of the top sides in the world. Brazil, they've always been knocking on the door. They've produced some amazing upsets over the years, and I followed them quite closely with New Zealand coach Ruben Samuel coaching them as well, and a couple of the Brazilian players obviously playing all around the world, different teams. So they'll be certainly a team worth watching. Yeah, I mean it'll be an interesting tournament. I won't be keeping too much of an eye on the Saturday because I'll be at the Mount with the club team, but
follow us here on
Bells
Facebook. We'll have all the results on Rugby Heartland. And the New Zealand girls, well, they kick off against Papua New Guinea, so it's a nice, easy. No game's easy. We all know when you get results and all that kicking. That's the beauty of sevens, but they should be far too strong for Papua New Guinea in that opening game. It'll be a good way for them to get those cobwebs out. And just because Ireland were playing Brazil in the first game, Ron Hollis has asked, is Ireland not part of the British Isles? Well, you say that to an Irishman, Ron, and see how long you last in a bar drinking a Guinness. No, you got Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom, and Ireland, which is its own standalone republic with a president, and they hate the English. So there you go. Ireland still get their own team in the World Series and in the Olympics. So, so Papua New Guinea up first, 11:44. So I don't know, that in theory should be a 40-point win to the girls.
Oh, it should be in theory, and I think at 11:44 a.m. on a Saturday, it's probably about the time that everybody's probably cracking their first beer, do you think, or is that too late?
Well, depending on what the weather's like here in Wellington on Saturday, I'll be probably on my third.
Or your homebrew
Or,
whiskey? Yeah, all right.
well, actually, I've got a brew out now, and it's looking like we might be doing a distillation on in the weekend. So, and the first batch for 2023 should be a
Nice.
beautiful vintage, great Wellington water.
Yeah.
So
New Zealand
we'll
Papua New Guinea is a good lead in for the girls, so that'll be good to get
yeah,
that out the way.
yeah, because then their second game for the Kiwi girls is at 10 past or 15, 12 minutes past three against the Fijian. Now, the Fijian girls have been going really well lately, haven't they? And so I think we'll have a tougher fight there. But yeah, Hamilton, Fiji last. Yeah, I mean, really, we've got to throw everything in the kitchen sink and more, really, at these games because we want to finish top of the pool, get the easy draw or easier draw in the what do you call it, playoffs. So yeah, I'd say 15 points there to the Kiwis.
Yeah, as I said, it's a tough one. I'll never forget Waisali Serevi saying years ago. He says, "This may be New Zealand's home ground," he says, "but this is our game," and that's so true for the Fijians. It's their national game, and yeah, they'd love to come here and beat New Zealand on home soil. I mean, they've done it plenty of times before. And this will be no different. Look, it'll be a tough game, but yeah, I mean, if you had to put your house on it, you'd have to put New Zealand in there by 10 to 14 points.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, we've just had the Fijian Coastal Sevens on, and there were teams there from Australia. The Americans were there as well, the Falcons, but it ended up being between the army and the police or something like that in Fiji. So they've had their warm up to. I'm sure they already had their squad of players they had anyway, but a lot of them would have been playing in that Coastal Sevens last week. So yeah, just still keeping the conveyor belt running. I mean, that's all Fiji is with sevens. They're the All Black equivalent, as we all know. So the girls finish day one at 8 o'clock against Great Britain. Now, Great Britain to me, I like the concept, but again, you know, you're getting girls from four or five or three different nations together in a composite team. Sure, they've had two or three tournaments under their belts now, but I still think New Zealand by at least 10 to 15.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it must be hard for them to get them all into camp and whatever. I mean, I'm assuming they're all professional and they're getting paid and they're in there, you know, all the time. So combinations shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, well, so the winner of Pool A will play the second best third place team. So that could be, because just only because you've got the three pools. That's what I'm saying. New Zealand will have the easier run to the semi-finals, and then they will play the winner of second in Pool C versus second in Pool B. So, they'll be up probably against France and maybe Ireland or USA. So in the semi-final. So, well, that's the way. If I think all the other results will go. So New Zealand to go all the way in the girls to win. Is that our prediction?
Yep, absolutely. It'll be a brave person to bet against that.
Yeah. So then we come to the men. The last tournament again in New Zealand for a while. And so we'll just run through the groups as in order. So in Pool A, we've got Samoa, Fiji, France, Kenya. And then in Pool B, we've got New Zealand, Great Britain again, Australia, and Tonga. Pool C, USA, Uruguay, Ireland, and Japan. And in Pool D, South Africa, Argentina, Spain, and Canada. Now, I do have a quick question here, and I probably will end up with a clip around the ear by the good wife when I say this. But Tonga, is it Tonga or is it Tonga?
Oh, come on, mate. It's
No,
actually Dong.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so yeah, it is. It's like the T's like a silent D, I guess. And it's an O, so it'll be like a Tonga, I guess would be the correct pronunciation.
Okay. Oh, here's I can.
There you go.
I told you
Good
I was
on
going
you.
to get this right.
Good on you, Carly.
Oh, good on you, Carly. Chief says. Yeah, it was just a thing on the news the other night. They were talking about the volcano in Tonga. So I was just going, okay, I'm being educated here. So
Good on.
yeah. So anyway, but we'll look at Pool A first, and so we've got Samoa, Fiji, France, and Tonga, Kenya. Now, what has happened with the Kenyan Sevens?
I think, yeah, well, without really knowing the full story, I think there's a little bit of corruption going on there as well, and players aren't getting paid. You've got what's his name, Damien. I'm just trying to think. The Englishman is the coach, and he's coming out, and yeah, there's a bit of animosity there between the coaches and the players, and against the Kenyan rugby board. So yeah, it's pretty tough. I mean, back in the day, I think when Mike Friday was coaching Kenya, I think they pulled off a few upset wins, especially against New Zealand, and they're one of the top sides in the world there at one stage. But yeah, corruption, mate. I think that's probably what's going on there, and we're sort of speculating a little bit there, but it's a bit disappointing. But they got the athletes.
Mm, totally, and congratulations to Collins and Jera. He was inducted into the Coastal Sevens Hall of Fame last weekend as well. And but yeah, I mean, you look at the team they do have, and you'd think they'll do a lot better than they've been doing, but they're up against France, Fiji, and Samoa. Really, Fiji, you'd say, are streets ahead. But Samoa have been doing great guns since they came back from the COVID exile. And France can always provide an upset. Can Samoa and France beat Fiji?
Short answer is yes, because it is sevens, and it's so unpredictable. And as you said, both Samoa and France have been playing really good footy. Fiji just appear to be on another level though, and they've traditionally done really, really well in this tournament. So again, I'd be a brave betting man to bet against Fiji topping that pool, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me either if Samoa and France topped the pool and Fiji didn't qualify for the quarters. That's the beauty about sevens. That's what I love about it. You got to turn up. You got to be prepared. It's all about preparation. It's all about how you turn up on the day, how you recover. Your diet, fueling the body. There's so many different factors in there as well. And it's a tactical game. Have you got 6 players up on a sweeper, or are you having 7 players up? Are you got a rush defence, or have you got a sort of a chilled defence? You're attacking the breakdown, or you're leaving the breakdown. So are you going to kick, or are you going to keep the ball in hand? There's so many variables there as well. So, but look, if I was a betting man, Fiji would be there and probably go all the way with New Zealand. They'll be my 2 top picks.
Oh, well, because Paul Coulson reckons it will be a New Zealand Samoa final. So
could be.
That'll be an interest. Could be.
Absolutely. Could be.
Well, I mean, they've given us a run for their money as well in recent games, the Samoans, and it can be quite niggly too. Those games I've noticed over the last couple of meetings they've had. There's been quite a few cards. But we'll skip Pool B. We'll come back to them because we'll want to talk more about the New Zealand stuff. So Pool C, we've got USA, Uruguay, Ireland, and Japan. Now, Uruguay have been great. This is their first season as a core nation. USA seem to be coming back into some sort of form. But I'm going to go for a middle upset there as well and say that I think Ireland and Uruguay will qualify out of Pool C.
Yeah, interesting. Again, I'm not gonna diss you for that, mate. But I'm a big fan of Mike Friday, and I like what he's doing with the USA team. He's done virtually a complete rebuild. He's had these players and that have performed for them in the past, and they've been one of the top sides on the circuit. Then they sort of fell away a bit, but they've really come back in the last few tournaments. I think he's started to find, he's been experimenting with some players. And the thing with the USA is they're all athletes. They've just got to learn the game. And I think they're starting to learn the game again under Mike Friday. So I would pick the USA to top that pool. Ireland have been really, really impressive. They seem to they're really taking sevens seriously. I think the USA-Ireland game will determine who finishes top of that pool. Having said that, Japan, remember, I think they beat the All Blacks sevens at an Olympics not too long ago. So that's sevens for you, mate. The beautiful game.
Well, didn't Spain beat the All Blacks at the last tournament?
They did. That's right. And we all wrote them off, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, not me, but everybody else. It was so, I loved watching that or listening to that.
Yeah. So we'll look at Pool D with Spain. So they're up against South Africa, Argentina, and Canada. Again, Canada is right up there with the Kenyans with me. It's sort of like, what is going on here with Canada? And it's that whole North American thing that's happening. It's sort of like, to me, in both sevens and 15s, how backwards their development has gone. And as you pointed out, we'll hopefully speak with some people on the ground in Major League Rugby this year to find out what's actually going on with these guys in America, because it's like, if you look at Canada, they've got one Major League Rugby team in the Toronto Arrows. They've got a whole country to pick one club team. Yet they have issues. You've got America. They've got all these great ideas for their Major League Rugby, yet they're bringing in a lot of overseas guys for coaching, which is great, but the players, they just seem to be, I don't know, I'd even say Heartland level.
So it's a bit sad. There've been a power waiting to happen for 20 or 30 years, and you seem as though they crack it, they've got a good competition, major league, but they've tried over the years and that's failed. They try again, that's fails. Obviously the size of the country is a big factor as well. Getting people to play rugby from, primary school level like we do here in New Zealand, that would be key. At the moment, I think they're reaching into high schools, which is a major boost for them, because it used to just be a university sort of a game. At least they're getting them at high school level. But again, I don't know what's going on. I can't put my finger on it, because they've got the athletes, but it seems as though they're getting the athletes that are washed up from NFL or other sports. So they've got to get genuine rugby players there. And I think we hit it on the head. We nailed it a few sessions ago when we talked about the influx of overseas players coming in. Is that really good for the USA locals? So is that going to strengthen their game? And the answer quite clearly at the moment is no. So something's got to be done, because, I'd love to see the USA as a powerhouse in rugby, and Canada. So how do they do it? Still a work in progress, still a power waiting to happen, unfortunately, 20 years later.
Well, maybe they'll pull their finger out and they get to host the World Cup.
Qualify first. Did they qualify? They didn't qualify, did they?
Well, I think they pre-qualify because they're the hosts, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
So at least they got a free ticket.
Yeah.
But South Africa, after their awesome record-running win, and we all knew what was going to happen when New Zealand and Fiji and Samoa and all them guys came back into play properly after COVID. Well, I'll just still say we're still in it. I've got to throw this out there, $5 into the kitty. But, how do you go from 30 deaths in China to 60,000 in a day? We all know what's been happening over there. So if people think that the pandemic's over, it's not. It's still happening. But then, hey, I survived. You survived. We're all lucky ones, I guess. But so South Africa have been pummeled since New Zealand and Samoa and that have been back in play. Do you think they'll be near the semi-finals?
Absolutely, they will. Yeah, I mean, if I look at that pool, it's probably the weakest pool of the lot. No disrespect to the other teams, but Argentina have been very inconsistent. I guess they're world class at best. And Spain, obviously, they pulled up a massive upset against New Zealand, but I just can't see that South Africa will be too troubled in that pool, and they'll finish top. There you go.
There you go. Well, I'll go with Argentina and South Africa. I'll go Argentina finishing top, South Africa second, just to spice it up a little bit.
Good on you. Yeah, that's all right. I'd expect nothing less, mate.
No, and as again, if there's anyone out, there are people watching. Paul's very thing. It's hard to in sevens. Yeah, 7 minutes and a half, but 3 games a day. Before we jump into the New Zealand thing, so like you've got your tournament this weekend with the boys from Silverdale. So you got 3 or 4 games, but you're playing all your games all Saturday. So you got your pool games, you got your playoff games, and all that. How do teams like? I know it's a different level when you get to the internationals, but how do you keep that fitness thing going? Because sometimes it can take you 5 or 6 minutes to warm up and get into the game, and then it's over, and then you have a 2-hour break or a half-hour break before your next game. How do you keep the guys fresh and sort of rearing to get out there for the second and the third and the fourth game?
So the key is your warm-ups are, so when you get onto the field, you're ready to go. You don't take 3 or 4 minutes to get into the game. You're actually ready before you get on. So the first warm-up of the day is generally the longest one. What some teams do is they might have a bit of a blowout, like a bit of a fitness session, maybe even 3 hours before their first game. They might do that. They might go back to their hotels. They might jump in the pool, have a pool session cold, and then have breakfast. So they're getting food into them 2.5 to 3 hours before their kickoff. Then when they get to the ground, they have a shorter lead-in. So they're actually still, physically fizzing and warmed up, so to speak. But the warm-up might only be maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then they're on the field. And their warm-up will be pretty short and sharp. So again, you're off your feet and you're saving energy. You're on the field. And after the game, then you warm down. So it'll be your static stretching, it'll be ice baths, it'll be maybe getting some physio, getting some fuel into you, which would be maybe bananas, yogurts, muesli bars, whatever it is, and you're replacing all your electrolytes. And generally what you do is you're weighing players too. You weigh them before a game or pre-game, and you weigh them post-game, and you have a look at how much weight they've lost in fluid, and generally they've got to replace that weight again in fluids before they can carry on or even go back to the hotel or warm up for the next game. So you've got to manage the players really, really well. And as you go through the day, the more games you play, the less time you have to warm up. And so maybe for New Zealand on the internationals, if they're only playing 3 games a day, it's not quite as crucial. But certainly in a club team like us, if we're playing our 5th game of the day, the warm-up might be 5 minutes. These guys don't need much. It's a quick little blowout, bit of a stretch, boom, hit a couple of tackle bags, and then you're on the field and you're doing it. So you just got to manage the players. The key thing there is the recovery. And for these international players, the recovery on the Saturday night will be crucial, because we always talk about the big boys come out to play on day 2. And what happens there is that you might get these teams that are really fizzing on day 1, and they're in there, they're getting some good results. But because their fitness levels aren't right, their recoveries isn't right, they turn up on day 2, they can't get out of bed, they're hobbling, they're sore, they got injuries all over the place, and they go and blow out in a quarterfinal. So we always say that day 1 is all about qualifying for day 2, and on day 2 is when you really put the effort in, because it's just knockout footy then.
Yeah, well, as Paul's just said, it has changed a lot since he played back in the day. But it was like, as he said, they had a 10-minute warm-up, play the game, then eat.
Look, it's evolving. It's evolving all the time too. So, you got sports science now. You got these GPS systems. And even when I was playing too, crikey, you never had a GPS on your back, but you're measuring and you get an idea of how much work these guys are doing. So then, and you got your trainers in your ear as well now saying, okay, look, Kevin's buddy, mate, his heart rate's up to 170, and he's been pushing himself for 6 minutes. It's time to get him off. He's fatigued. Okay, Kevin, come off the field. Boom, send someone else on. So it's strategic subbing as well, and using those wisely, and making sure that you're preserving the energy for the players later on in the tournament. So there is a lot to factor in. So it is very. Well, actually, Kevin's been on the field 20 seconds. He's puffing it, but he needs to get him off.
And that's exactly what happened back about 20 years ago when I led my team out to play the Bay of Plenty Wasps in the 10s in Pararua. I ran on the field, went into the first breakdown, and then I went, bugger that, walked off and grabbed a bottle of whiskey and spent the rest of the day on the sideline managing my team. But I got it on the field. But I had to laugh when you said beats per minute because, with the fancy watches now you have, measures your heart rate and all that. I almost died when I saw while I was mowing the lawns. I was at about 146, 150 beats a minute, but then it was quite hard lawn mowing. I could have had you there to tell Coralie I should be subbed off the lawnmower. That would have been really good because I was fatigued. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, a quick question though, just because you were talking about the club rugby, and I missed it before from Paul, is Papatoe, do they still have a club sevens?
We were looking around for tournaments to enter, and they were few and far between. And it's really, really sad, the state of what's happening at the moment, because I don't know. I don't want to say sevens is dying. It just seems as though that it's a really. It used to be the poor cousin of 15s, and now it's the homeless, broken, beaten up cousin. Because we tried to find some tournaments to enter so that we could enter our North Harbour Sevens comp and have 2 or 3 tournaments under our belt. Couldn't find any. Papatoe wasn't one of them. Paramahoe, they hosted us. And then Hamilton Old Boys, I think, had a tournament. There's a couple of tournaments around, but for whatever reason, I think that the 15 season's getting longer and longer and longer. The players are being pressured into, going into their academies or going into pre-season or post-season resting, and that sevens is just getting pushed aside. So, this is what I said a couple of weeks back, is that sevens, I think, at some stage just needs to break away completely. Maybe still be under the guise of NZRU, but it needs to break away like Touch does or Rugby League and create its own sport and its own tournaments and its own players and its own professional system, because at the moment it's not working.
Like Touch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because you got these kids coming straight out of school who not necessarily don't like 15s, but they just prefer to play sevens. And if you can have sevens tournaments at school level, etc., and then from there you go to the Condor Sevens, and from there you've got a World School Sevens or whatever, and from there you can be picked to play for New Zealand without ever having to play a 15s tournament all the way through winter. You can just play sevens. It's happened in the past there with the women. You look at someone like a Kayla McAllister. She went straight into a New Zealand sevens team, women's team, without ever playing a game of 15s. And you see that quite often in the women's, not necessarily in the men's, but it's happening again. You're getting these seven specialists who love playing sevens. It's a different game than 15s. It's a different body shape, and kids prefer to play that, but they haven't got the opportunity to do that. And this is where we've seriously got to have a look at creating pathways for them and through the sevens avenue.
Yeah, so I mean that is a good thing too, because so this weekend, final World Series, Pool B, New Zealand taking on Great Britain, Tonga, and Australia. It's quite a tough group.
Yeah, it is a tough group, and especially tough for New Zealand. For us on the outside looking in, the pressure we're going to be putting on New Zealand is going to be extreme, isn't it? And so in their camp, obviously, they won't be thinking about that. They'll just be looking at playing every game as it comes. But they've got to be feeling it, you know what I mean? Like, oh, shit, we're at home. The expectation, the crowd, it's going to be, and it can get overwhelming for them. So they've just got to stay grounded. They've just got to focus on the task in hand, not get too far ahead of themselves, and just take every game as it comes, and then qualify. As I said, just qualify for day 2. That's all they've got to do. Qualify for day 2.
So that all kicks off at 9:10 on Saturday. So we're into Group B for New Zealand. So I'm just getting to the draw here. So our first game is at 10:15 against Tonga. The Tongans, I mean, normally you'd say easy, right? But then they'll be out firing because it's their first game, both teams' first game. The Tongans will be wanting to celebrate, and that they're there because they're the invitational side. They'll be enjoying the occasion, but New Zealand will be far too strong for them. But the beauty of sevens, who would have thought Spain would have beaten us last tournament? So you think we'll still be, Craig Laidlaw and that will be a bit wary of what the Tongans are going to put up against us?
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's a first up game that you wouldn't want, it to be the Tongans. They're going to throw everything at it. I think it'll take probably 7 to 10 minutes to actually win the arm wrestle against them, and then I think New Zealand will probably run away with it. But I think New Zealand's just got to absorb the pressure. They've just got to make their tackles. They've got to try and win the rucks, and then try and speed the game up a bit, because Tonga's going to come in and they're going to be putting in some big hits. They're going to be running hard. They're going to be running strong. They're going to throw everything at it. But yeah, I think the class of New Zealand will come through. I don't think it'll be an easy game. It would be, I think, if it was a third game of the day, it might be a bit different. Both teams sort of feeling the fatigue a bit. But I think New Zealand probably should win that one 2 to 3 tries, so 14 to 20 points.
Okay. The game straight after that is the second game in Group B, which is Great Britain versus Australia. Oh, two teams I don't want to support either. So can we have a draw there?
Well, a draw would be interesting. Certainly be interesting, because then it'd come down to points for and against, wouldn't it, for the other games? But yeah, I think the Aussies look really, really good, really impressive. Great Britain's been a little bit disappointing this series. I'd put my money on Australia to win that fairly comfortably, if I had to put money on.
Because then we got the Trans-Tasman clash at 2:05. So hopefully you haven't got a, as Paul mentioned before, it's only 7 minutes each way. So hopefully you don't have a game on at that time. New Zealand, Australia in Hamilton for the last time for a long time.
Yeah, what a game. What a game on the Saturday. That'd be awesome. Yeah, look, it's going to be a tough one. That'll be a real tough one. It'll be a good indicator as to what teams turned up for the weekend. And again, I just think, New Zealand at home will be too strong, but those Aussies can, just never underestimate them. It could go either way. It'll be close. It'll be a close one.
Yeah, so we'll say 4 points.
4 points, New Zealand. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And then we face off in the last game on Saturday at 7:20 or 7:30 against Great Britain. By then, I'm going to go for an upset with Tonga beating Great Britain. I don't know where that's come from in my brain. So that game was on at what time was that game on? That's on at 1:30. So that gives Great Britain 6 hours to lick their wounds against us after a defeat by Tonga. But I think New Zealand, as you've pointed out, will be far too strong. They'll be fizzing after a narrow victory against Australia. God, we're just writing the script here. So they'll be really sort of pumped and wanting to finish strongly the day. The crowd by then in Hamilton will be absolutely pumping, I'd say, after a few hours in the sun. Drinking a few of their RTDs and their vodka spritzers like they do. So New Zealand by 15. There you go.
Yeah, third game of the day. You'd hope that by then they're running on all eight cylinders, the big V8 kicking into gear. It'll be interesting to see the makeup of the New Zealand squad. I see today that two youngsters have been added to the squad. One of them's Peyton Spencer, which is the son of a legendary Carlos Spencer. The other one, I'm just trying to think what his name is. I was going to say Tavita Harris. But two very exciting young talents. So it'll be interesting because I see that Tone Nigshu, I always struggle with his last name, has been ruled out with injury. So there could be an opening there for a young buck to come in. So it'll be interesting to see what the squad or the makeup of that New Zealand squad is.
Yeah, well, it is, and and I'm sure that'll be all announced tomorrow, or even later today. But that is like we actually called that the other day. Whatever happened to these guys being brought in, like Christian Cullen and Jonah Lomu? They made their mark in sevens before heading to the fifth. Well, they were playing 15s, but they became noticed playing the sevens game.
Mm.
So yeah, and hey, you can't get better breeding than Carlos Spencer. So and as a horse race owner yourself, it's all in the breeding, it's all in the genes. And I'll just point out, Coralie won a trial the other day at Rickerton, beat Isabel Colt. So
Well, thanks for the
finally
tip.
figured out. Yeah, so
Okay.
she's finally figured out how to get to the front and stay there. And so we'll definitely give you a shout out when she has her next tote start. So,
Cool.
and Coralie was very happy because I didn't send her out to go for a run around the block. Because if she loses it, she's got to go for a fitness test. So if we just quickly flick back to the pools, and then so we're a pool B. So the winner of Pool B will play the second place in Pool C. So we'll be up in my idea is Uruguay or Ireland, but then USA are there too. So Japan gone. So New Zealand in the quarterfinals would be playing either USA, Uruguay, or Ireland. Who would be your pick there to play in the quarterfinal?
I'd say, as I said before, I think the USA would win that pool. Ireland be second. So it'll be an All Blacks v Ireland quarterfinal. The All Blacks will come through there.
Okay, and then so what would happen then is we would play the winner of match 30, which is winner of Pool C versus the second in Pool B. Is that right?
Yeah,
So, okay, so we might get to play Australia in a semi-final.
could be. Yeah, because I mean the USA, Australia win that. Yeah. Yeah, that's the permutations, mate. You just don't know. Hey, it's pretty exciting, really. So yeah, bring it on.
Wow, I mean, that would be quite huge if we get to play them in pool play, get beaten, say, and then get the revenge in the semi-final. So we might get two cracks at the Aussies. Is the rundown there. So otherwise, yeah, if we have a quick look at the men's and women's standings currently. So Samoa are the top dogs at the moment on 47 points. Samoa on 47. But that hiccup we had in Hong Kong for New Zealand, if we had not gone out in that quarterfinal stage, would be hitting the pack.
Yeah, and look, I mean, win this tournament, all of a sudden you got 22 points there, depending on who comes runner-up. Yeah, there's only 3 points between the top sides. I mean, crikey, you got USA there. I mean, even Fiji, like 7 points between the top five. What a great competition. Don't discount Australia or France. Look at that. I haven't seen these standings. That's amazing. That's amazing.
I
Unbelievable.
know. And
Ireland.
if it ended today, right? If let's say the qualification for the Olympics ended today, Samoa, South Africa, New Zealand, USA qualify. Fiji not qualify. Australia, they have to go through a repechage system for the other. They'll make it, but they have to play those extra tournaments to qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Great Britain down there in 10th place. So yeah, it is crazy. I mean, we're only 3 tournaments in. I mean, we'll know a lot more when I think it'll be a lot clearer by the time we get to Hong Kong Part 2, because yes, we are going back to Hong Kong again in about 3 or 4 tournaments before they head off to Europe. They still have not actually said what the tournaments are from next year or from the next season. I haven't seen who the 7 venues are yet, but Hong Kong's one.
Yeah.
London will be one. Dubai will be another one. So there's 3 or 4. So it's like it's a battle of who gets the others. So it'll be interesting. I'd love to see a tournament in Fiji or Samoa because they deserve it. Don't they not?
Won't happen because there's not enough money to be made, and that's what it's all about, man. It's about where they can get the money and where they can get the sponsorship, and it'll go there. And it's all about the party now too, isn't it? That's what they're saying. They want party venues. So,
well, yeah. So I mean, so I suppose it's just up to these two. Australia will have one definitely. You just know that because the world bows to all the Australians. But that's how the men are looking. And if we have a quick look at the women's standings, then so Australia and New Zealand head to head, 1 win each, one runner up each, and then the steadiness of USA picking up the bronzes as they go through. So again, they're miles ahead, New Zealand and Australia in the women's, aren't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely 1 and 2, no, without a doubt. And so I don't think too much will change this weekend. But again, God, how many times have I said that? Anything can happen.
Anything. Well, that's true. Believe it or not, we're into 50 minutes. So we've actually been covering this quite well. What other gossips have we got? I can't remember. I have got my new T-shirt. I have to show the world. Champions, the Wellington team, and also our new jersey with the champions embroidered on it. So just want to just keep on saying that. Wellington have a new CEO, one Shannon Paku. If you had not seen that in the news recently, so that'll be interesting to see what his ideas are. He'll be one of the younger NPC CEOs in the country, I'd say. And I say younger, he's probably late 30s or early 40s now, probably, but great player of his time. But then when Mark Robinson got the CEO's job here in New Zealand, I thought, great, we've finally got a player that understands players. Does he? Because we've had a few issues recently, and so. But do you think Shannon Paku will keep that ball rolling for the Wellington Lions coming into NPC 23?
Yeah, I think it's a great decision. It's inject a bit more young blood in there, and especially being a former player, we've got a similar scenario here with Adrian Donald at North Harbour. A youngish bloke and former player, so injecting a bit of youth and enthusiasm and understanding, I think, is the key word there. With Mark Robinson, I think the jury's still out, mate. We've just got to give him a bit more time. He came in that COVID era where there's so many restrictions and no crowds and trying to get the competitions going, but it was just it was so frustrating. So we just got to let these guys just play their hand and do their job.
Yeah, well, the great thing is, we just know that whatever happens, we'll go for the first time in a long time back-to-back champions. So hopefully it's not 20 years between drinks again for my mighty Lions. So definitely all the eyes will be on the Sevens this weekend. Now, I will give everyone a heads up. Jeff and I have been talking, and I think it's a great idea. Friday nights at about what time? 6, 7 o'clock. was it?
Well, I just thought maybe just a rugby nutters club at sort of 5 p.m. on a Friday, just grab a beer, jump in and discuss, get some results going, discuss what's happening, just even for half an hour or an hour, and then you can go off, grab your dinner, and sit down at about 7:30 and watch the game. So yeah, just a bit of an idea there once Super Rugby season kicks off. But anybody can jump in. Just send the link out there into social media land, and hey, if we get 50 people turning up, drinking beers and having a bit of a gas bag, then so be it.
Yeah, so a return in 2023 of the Vault Rugby Clubhouse. It's going to be great. And I'll be sitting there drinking my homebrew, giving my suggestions, and we do invite everyone to come and just chat and talk shit, basically. Paul has a quick question too as we're winding up the show. Off the tack, do the Black Ferns deserve more dollars?
100%, absolutely. My God, that World Cup final was probably the best game I've ever seen. And to see where they've come from and what they did, the work they put in, absolutely, God, yes, no doubts at all.
Yep, totally. And they really just got to pull all the stops out. I've been trying to find all the information about the Heartland girls. They're still working through their plans on what they're going to be doing, but it does sound like we might have a Heartland Women's Championship in 2024. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, no, really looking forward to an awesome 2023. So we'll be pretty much ending the show in a minute. There we go.
There you go. That's what I was looking for, mate. That is a bloody good read. If anybody wants a read of a good rugby book, read that. That is outstanding. And Ruby Tui is something else. And so when you talk about the woman and more pay, absolutely, 100%.
Oh, totally. But the thing is with Ruby, I mean, she's a superstar. It would be great to get her on the show if she watched. I do know Kendra Coxidge and Sarah Hurreny follow us on Heartland Rugby's page. So put the word out. Hey, we'd love to speak to Sarah, captain of the Hurricane Pillar. Well, hey, go Hurricanes. Because, I tell you, we're in for a big year. We've got the Super Rugby, we've got the NPC, we've still got the Sevens, and then to wrap it all up at the end of the year with the Rugby World Cup. So, hey, all I have to say really is, because, we're top of the hour, and thank you, Paul, today for all your comments. I love that. And, of course, my phone just rang at the wrong moment. I'll ring that person back with the banjos playing in the background. But, yeah, so it's going to be a great season. I'm really looking forward to the Vault Rugby Clubhouse kicking off at the start of Super Rugby. But we'll be back next week to talk about Sydney and the Vault, go over what's happened this weekend. But Jeff, good luck with your Silverdale boys this weekend. Take out the Marlin Sevens. I want to see the trophy. So have that sitting there. All right.
Cheers, mate. Beautiful.
Okay. So until next week, everyone, we'll see you later.
Ka kite ono.